All right. So next, we're going to talk about a Wyoming ranch. It's actually a ranch for troubled teens. That well, August, why don't you take us out?
Gladly. So, our second article comes from NBC News that was written on October 6th of this year. And like Jason said, it is a camp for troubled teens to help them overcome and cope with their challenges, aka what all teens go through, which is a rebellious phase of sorts. And some are more challenged than others, I suppose. But all in all, it's not that bad. Teens can't be that bad. But these camps are located in very rural areas, such as Wyoming. I've heard of a few in Nevada, if you will. And the one we're specifically talking about in this article is called Trinity Teen Solutions. It was opened in 2002, but curiously and abruptly shut down when there was allegations against manual labor, specifically heavy manual labor that these teenagers, which when I say teenagers, I mean 13 to 18-year-olds, these are middle school, high school students, and they are forced to do manual labor. So very interestingly, this Trinity Teen Solutions shut down, and their founder and owner, Angie Woodward, refused to comment. Interesting. But you know what? When I think of, what's the best thing to do for teenagers that are having a difficult time and, having normal teen problems like maybe experimenting with drugs and sex, etc., maybe you should kidnap them in the middle of the night with multiple different strangers. And then while they're being dragged and restrained out of their own home at 2 o'clock in the morning, just tell them you love them and then it'll all be better. And then they'll be dragged out to a van where they will then be transported to an unknown location and they have no idea what's going on. I think that would help the teenagers that are struggling. And then once they get to the unknown location that you're forcing them to go to, you're legally kidnapping them. You force them to hike through rugged terrain in the heat for days. You force them to do intense manual labor, and you punish them in humiliating and borderline abusive ways that separate them from the rest of the world, all they know and love. They have no contact with their friends or people they know from school. Basically, all they have is limited connection to their parents, which are the people who signed them up for this in the first place to help them. And this isn't the only camp. So, yay, this one got shut down for now. But there are multiple others, such as Blue Fire Wilderness and Triangle Cross Ranch. So, I want to go ahead and throw this to Helen.
So I have to admit that I didn't give a lot of thoughts to these camps before until Paris Hilton actually talked about her own traumatizing experiences of being forced into one of these troubled kids camps. And even as an adult, she is still dealing with the results and the trauma that she experienced at these camps. And I really admire her for coming forth and talking about these things, because we tend to think about this as like, well, parents, they can't handle their kids and they're busy or whatever, and they throw them to what they think is going to correct their child, and when they get back, they will be a normal functioning teen that isn't going to cause problems. Now, as someone that's raised two children, it's not easy raising kids. There's no guidebook. We don't really know what to do. And I think that for, those of us that are on the secular side, we tend to want to find a way to like push through it. And especially if we really care. But there are plenty of religious people that want the church to raise their kids, to give them, some kind of moral guidance and stuff like that. And when that doesn't work, because they don't have the parental education, they don't believe in good mental health, family therapy, not getting support from other parents, friends, a structure to help them raise their child, instead of, and if the church isn't doing it, let's throw them into a camp. Let's do it that way. And maybe by doing that intense manual labor and that rebellion will be stomped out of them. And I found it also really funny that, like, not funny, haha funny, but like they tied one of the girls to a goat. Now, one, I want to know what the goat did. And two, and I'm laughing because it's just beyond ridiculous and horrible. But like, what is the point of that punishment? What lesson is that girl supposed to learn? And what what do you expect to see from your child when they get back? What kind of correction do you see in your child? And that's the thing that's very disheartening and frustrating. So, Jason, what do you think about of all this?
Well, the first thing I think is you probably shouldn't steal my notes because I
Oh,
did
I
put
read my
in
notes.
my notes, what could well, no, I did put exactly, what could someone do to be tied to a goat, but also conversely, what did the goat do to be tied to a woman? So, I guess great minds think alike, but I'm going to still say you stole my notes. Now, I do want to give some little clarification here because the camp isn't officially. I mean, it's still licensed by the state of Wyoming to run and operate, and the camp, due to the ongoing investigations, decided that they were going to not take any more clients. So the one thing on this particular article is that it was a little bit light in detail. I think that August did provide a lot more detail, which I definitely want to get back to you on that one. Um, but I do want to say that while the allegations are absolutely horrendous, and while I'm willing to take these women's accusations, on face value, and say that it definitely needs to be investigated, that the camp itself hasn't been fully shut down, hasn't been taken down yet, uh,
Thank you for
because
that clarification.
yeah, I mean it's possible, not likely, especially given the amount of investigations and the seriousness of this, that this work camp and all that was designed to be okay. I'm not quite buying that, just based upon some of the other supplementary information that I saw. But Rich, what do you make? What kind of sick camps do you guys got over there in Britain?
We don't do that kind of thing.
You don't?
Yeah,
Oh man.
we do scout camps, which usually involves making dens out in the woods, and quite a lot of the male scouts discovering their own sexuality while it happens, to be honest. But yeah, just not to get ahead of myself, but one of the most famous depictions of a witch in history is by Albrecht Dürer, and it's called Witch Riding Backwards on a Goat. So whether there's any religious symbolism there, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It is alarming to me. There is such a thing as work therapy, where you voluntarily go somewhere of your own volition because you want to, and you work and you do a job well done, and it gives you a sense of self-esteem, and it helps you out of a rut, and it can get you going. It can help you work through mental health problems, and that's great. And you have to have skilled counselors who know what they're doing and set a course, and don't just tie people to goats and make people do manual labor as they see fit, which is not what's happening here, clearly. There's also the added thing that a teenage brain tends to be the areas of the brain, like the limbic system and the amygdala and all these bits associated with emotions, develops a little bit quicker than your if you like, your reason centers, your white matter. And so teenagers act out because they feel first and think second. That's just the way we are. We all work. We've all been there. We've all done it. Every single one of us. None of us didn't have that moment. And I find it odd that this is being medicalized. They are medicalizing teenagers and saying, no, you're an ordinary teenager and you're acting out. So let's send you off to this camp who doesn't know what it's doing and is going to, frankly, abuse you, because bad counseling is abuse, in my view. It's awful. It's really awful. And it really, really upsets me what's going on. And I hope they don't get the license back, because I don't know if they got a license in the first place. I mean, August, do you know why?
No, I really don't. I can't say I'm surprised, though. It seems like a trend that we always find the absolute worst ways to cure normal issues that people have. You know, why focus on psychiatric care when you can just apparently tie people to goats and force them to hike through deserts and hot terrain for an extended period of time? There are a few things I want to mention here, and they are going to increasingly escalate, so buckle up. So the fact that the place itself is called Trinity Teen Solutions. Okay, Jason, thank you for making me smile, because I was getting a little too serious here. But no, the Trinity Teen Solutions, they're not even trying to hide the religiosity here. They're not even trying to hide that there's some sort of religious aspect here, which, of course, again, I'm not shocked. I'm sure Dr. Rich is shocked, and I'm sure everybody else is, but I'm not. So that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And I also think that, unfortunately, I thought that they had shut it down. I thought there was maybe some hope left, but Jason is telling me otherwise. And so I've lost everything that I had previously given any kind of credit to. One thing I will say, though, is this is much more escalated than I think a lot of people realize. The U.S. Government Accountability Office has produced a report, and this report is 38 pages long, and its title is Residential Treatment Programs, Concerns Regarding Abuse and Death in Certain Programs for Troubled Youth. How is that even a sentence? How is that possible, that there can be deaths, and not just a couple, because, sometimes weird things happen. No, these are 86 reported deaths since the year 2000. 86 deaths. And again, those are the reported ones. And you got to think that maybe some of them might not be reported because of covering it up or giving it a different name, saying, well, they had some sort of medical issue, etc. No, the most common, if you scroll through the 38 pages, again, 38 pages of the report here, a lot of the causes of death are just completely avoidable and unexplainable and unacceptable. This includes dehydration, internal bleeding, hyperthermia, not hyper, as in they're getting overheated to the point of heat stroke and death, and severed arteries. Severed arteries, I wonder why. You don't really hear about people dying of severed arteries. You know why? Because most people aren't in the middle of butt-fuck nowhere where they can't get to a hospital in time to, cover up said severed artery. Just a thought. There was massive head trauma, and the one that pisses me off the most, suicide. And if you listen to the stories of the survivors, they will tell you how many attempts there were. But in the middle of nowhere, I guess you can protest until you starve to death or just refuse to drink. I mean, how far are you going to protest this? You'll probably get out eventually, but some of these things are completely... How do you die from dehydration? You're not giving them water. That's how that happens. You're not giving them fucking water. Why are you not giving them water? Why are they hiking through the fucking desert for days without water? This is, I don't understand how anyone could see that this isn't abuse, and the fact that it's even legal. This is on the same level to me as homosexual conversion therapy. It doesn't work. As Dr. Rich said, these people have some sort of trauma. They maybe have a chemical imbalance in their brain. They're young people. a lot of the times people go through rebellious phases in their teens. And honestly, that's when they need to get it out of their system. And I understand if the kid's getting violent or doing massive hard drugs. I get that as a parent, you want to do what's best for them. And maybe these parents do think they're doing what's best for the kid. But what they need is probably medication to fix a chemical imbalance. They definitely need some sort of talk therapy. They need to be taken to a place where they feel safe. This is the opposite of all of that. And then kids are dying because of it. These are 13-year-olds dying of dehydration in the middle of nowhere. So I just want to make that clear that, when I was telling people about this, they were like, oh, it's like Girl Scouts. Nope, not Boy Scouts, not Girl Scouts, none of that, which we know there's problems with that as well. This is being forced. This is not a choice. This is manipulation. This is child abuse. And the fact that it was ever legal is ridiculous. But someone else take it here. Jason?
Mike?
Yeah, so I want to touch on the dehydration aspect really quickly, because that is something that is a really, really big issue in the military. Okay, the military had a rash of deaths a number of years ago due to dehydration, because they thought, oh, well, we'll just work these recruits harder and harder, and that's how you train them to become, killing machines, or good obedient sailors, soldiers, Marines, what have you. And when they realized that, no, you're actually causing so much incredible harm, not just to the mental aspect of it, but to the physical aspect of these service members. Let me tell you, hydration is a huge thing in the military, and that's all the way back in 2006. So if you can't if the military could figure that out in 2006, and probably a little bit before that, these camps, because I'm sure that they're not the only ones that are doing the same things, they can learn that as well. So Rich, I'm going to give you the last word on this one, and then I think we're going to go move on to the next segment.
Yeah, the deaths and things, that's appalling. Absolutely appalling. There's no justification for it at all. The few camps I know of around here, they have medical facilities on site. They have first aiders. They have people trained in advanced first aid, that sort of thing. So things like a severed artery wouldn't, unless it was a severe thing, wouldn't kill somebody because they know what to do. They put pressure on it. They even often know how to stitch the thing up and all that kind of stuff while they wait for the ambulance. It's just, I don't understand this idea of trying to bully kids into behaving as you want them to. I kind of do understand it. I understand it more than I'd like to, but it's not going to work. Like you say, it isn't a way to get a kid to behave. And that's a teenager who is a well-balanced, ordinary teenager going through a bit of a rebellious phase like everybody does. If it's somebody who has ADHD or some other developmental issue, or somebody who's on the spectrum, this is close to a death sentence for some of them. It's not good at all. They need counseling. Like I say, they need talk therapy, they need help, they need counseling, they need perhaps medication. They don't need sticking in the middle of the desert making to do work. And these people need to know that the film Holes is not an instruction movie. It's ridiculous. I just find it flabbergasting.
Yeah, no, it really is amazing that this is allowed to continue, and hopefully this will be something that we can really get the investigation going and shut this one down and any of the others that may be doing it.